Hello everybody, I'm the Bear Bow Brummy and welcome to part 2 of setting up a recurve bow. Today we're out in the garden. Doesn't look like it's going to rain very much. It's a bit better looking than the garage, but there you go. Anyway, today we're going to tackle tiller. We're going to look at what it is, how it affects your bow and how you adjust it. Now tiller is very simply a measurement, or more accurately, it's the difference between two measurements from there and there. To measure your tiller, it's easy to do. You can really use anything to measure it because it's not the distance itself that really matters. As I said, it's the difference between the two distances. You could use your bow square if you've got one. If you haven't got one, please get one. You're going to need it in future videos. You could use a simple ruler if you wanted to, or even if you're out in the field and you haven't got either of those, you could use one of your arrows to measure it. Now, if you happen to have a one-piece bow, you measure your tiller where the main body of the bow meets the base of the limb. But the trouble with that is one-piece bows don't have tiller adjustment, so it's a bit of a useless exercise anyway. You can kind of deal with it when you do your brace height. So what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on a three-piece takedown bow like this one, right? Because on this you can adjust the tiller. The problem with tiller comes from the design of modern recurve bows. If you measure your bow from limb tip to limb tip and then half that distance, you'll find that the centre of your bow, which is the perfect place for an arrow, is about there, right in the recess of the grip. But the problem is, modern bow design makes you load your arrow up there. Now you can see the problem. That arrow is closer to the top limb than it is to the bottom limb, which means that when you draw the bow back, you place the top limb under more tension than you do the bottom limb, so the top limb reacts slightly quicker. This is particularly true if you use a Mediterranean or split finger draw like I do, because your fingers are right behind the arrow and then the draw is off centre. If you use a 3-under draw, then it's not quite so bad because your fingers are down there nearer to the centre of the bow. So what you need to do to fix this is you need to make the bottom limb slightly stronger and therefore faster reacting than the top limb to compensate for the offsetting of the arrow. That's called positive tiller. Now, not setting your tiller up correctly has numerous issues. First and foremost, it'll make your bow quite loud, a bit noisy. The string will hit the limb hard and make a lot of noise. Secondly, there can be an excessive amount of vibration. That's always a problem. Thirdly, it can even affect the flight of your arrow, because your arrow won't come off cleanly, simply because your bow doesn't have the correct amount of power. I'll move the camera a little bit closer so you can actually see what I'm doing a bit closer up. If you take your bow, and I'm going to use an arrow for this because, as I said, the distance itself doesn't matter, it's the difference between the two distances the important thing. You measure your tiller where the top limb meets the top of your riser, just there, and put the arrow or the measuring device at 90 degrees to the string. Use the end of your fingers so you can get an accurate measurement of it. Then move to the bottom limb in the same place on the bottom limb where it meets the bottom of the riser. Then place the arrow there. Now, then you've got the difference between the two measurements. If your bottom limb measurement is shorter than your top limb measurement, that means the string is closer to the bottom there than it is to the top up there. That's called positive tiller. If both measurements are exactly the same, it means you have what's called a neutral tiller. If your top limb measurement is closer than your bottom limb measurement, that's called a negative tiller. Now, as this series is about setting up a recurve bow, I'm going to assume that you've already set your limb alignment. If not, watch my previous video and it'll explain how to do that correctly. You need to do that first. It's very important to do your setup in the correct order, because adjusting one thing can affect something else, and working in the right order will minimise it. Okay, I've angled the camera down a little bit so you don't have to look at my ugly mug, you can mainly see the bow. As you can see, first thing you need to do, de-string your bow, take off your limbs so you're just left with just the riser. Now the problem is, if you've just bought this riser, let's say you bought it online or even from a shop, you have no idea how far in those two limb bolts, or these tiller bolts as they're actually called, have been turned in. So you need to find yourself a baseline. So what we're going to do is you're going to work predominantly with the top limb bolt, and I'll show you how to set that in the center so you know exactly how far in or out that limb bolt is. You're going to need 2 Allen keys, one for the tiller bolt itself and another one for the locking nut, which is just in the back in that hole there. First you put 1 Allen key into the tiller bolt just to hold it still, and in the back one undo the little locking nut at the back, like that. Just loosen it off a turn or two so you can turn it, and now you need to completely remove your top limb bolt. Let's take that out. There we go, completely out. Now what you need to do is put the limb bolt back in again, just enough so that it holds onto the thread, like that, and give yourself 1 full turn, like that. That is now your safety margin. That means you can't, when you actually wind your limb bolt in or out, you won't be able to take the bolt out all the way, because you have that 1 limb bolt, that 1 turn safety margin. Now take a bit of masking tape. As you can see with my videos, there's a bit of a theme when it comes to masking tape. Place some masking tape on the top of the bolt there. Take a marker pen, put a little mark on the top of that. That's so that you can count the limb bolt turns as you wind it in. Now what I want you to do is wind that limb bolt in all the way, counting the turns as you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and a little bit, so we'll call it 17. Now what you want to do is bring that limb bolt back out halfway. Half of 17 is 8.5. So what we'll do is we'll just wind it out 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then tighten the lock nut up at the back so it doesn't move anymore, like that. Now that's your baseline for the other limb bolt. Again, all you have to do now with the other limb bolt is loosen that one off, put that one in there, loosen the lock nut off, like that, and then wind that one all the way in, because you already know how far out the other one is. Do that. Wind that one all the way in. That. Okay, now you wind it out the same amount of turns you have the other one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and again lock that one off. Now what you've got now is both tiller bolts are exactly the same distance out of the collar, so now in theory you should have equidistance between your limb settings to allow for it should be a neutral tiller when we put it back together again. We're going to go and do that now. Okay, now I've got my limbs and my string back on, you can now re-measure your tiller settings. So what I'm going to do is take my ruler, measure the top, that measures 16 centimetres, and the bottom one measures 16 centimetres, so they're exactly the same. So what I have there is called a neutral tiller. Both of those two distances are exactly the same. What I really need, because I shoot Mediterranean, is a positive tiller, which means that the bottom limb needs to be slightly stronger than the rest. If that's exactly what you need to do, all you have to do is wind your bottom tiller bolt in one turn at a time, and then measure it again until you get a 3 to 6 mil difference between the top measurement there and the bottom measurement there. This one has to be slightly less. Okay, now a word of warning: never adjust your tiller bolts with the bow strong. Those tiller bolts are under a lot of tension, and please de-string your bow before you try to adjust them. You can damage your limbs, you can damage your bolts, you can even damage the riser, and for that extra couple of minutes it takes just to de-string and re-string your bow, it's not worth the effort of destroying your bow when you do that. Anyway, that's tiller settings for you. I've been the Bare Bow Bone. Oh, for Christ's sake, that's wrong, isn't it? I've been the Bare Bow Brummy. I'm still getting used to the name, by the way. If you wish to subscribe to the channel, click down here somewhere. If you like your video and it was useful to you, please click down there. I'll see you again. Ta-ra for now.